My daughter hid the fact that my wife was secretly planning to leave me. Meanwhile, I was working overtime to support the family. Completely unaware of the betrayal happening behind my back, I never thought I'd be posting here. But here I am, venting about a situation that turned my life upside down for privacy reasons. I'll be using a throwaway account and changing a few details. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I'm 34 years old, a married man for 17 years. I'll call my wife, Melissa. We've got 2 kids, twins, a boy and a girl, both 7 years old, and a daughter who's 16. I work as an electrical contractor, handling high-voltage systems at big industrial sites. My job is dangerous, one wrong move, and it could fry me, but it pays well. Because of that, we've been able to live comfortably in a nice house in a decent neighborhood. So, there I was, 30 minutes from home, working at a factory. My crew was on lunch break, but I was still working on a panel. I had to finish it so we could test it after the break. That's when I got a call from my neighbor, Derek. Now, Derek wasn't the type to call during work hours, so when I saw his name on my phone, I knew something was off. "Yo, what's up?" I answered, already feeling uneasy. "Ethan, you need to get home, man," Derek said, his voice panicked. My stomach dropped. "What's going on? Is there a fire? Is Zoe okay? There's a U-Haul truck in front of your house. 3 guys are loading furniture into it, and your wife's there, supervising. I thought maybe you guys were moving or something, but it just seemed off. I was in shock. Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious. They've already taken your leather couch, that big TV from the living room, and a bunch of other stuff. Your wife's acting like it's no big deal. She's checking things off a clipboard." I could feel my brain short-circuiting. What the hell was going on? I couldn't process it. My thoughts raced as I tried to make sense of what Derek had just said. Was it some kind of robbery? Was Melissa being forced to help at gunpoint? Or had she just decided to bail on our marriage? None of it made sense. I ripped off my work gloves and ran to my supervisor, telling him there was an emergency at home, possibly a robbery. He gave me a quick nod, and I was gone, speeding all the way home. My mind was all over the place, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was happening. By the time I reached our neighborhood, I saw the U-Haul truck from a distance. The 26-footer was parked half on our lawn, and I could see Melissa standing outside, looking totally unbothered, clipboard in hand, while 3 strange guys loaded our stuff. But what really got to me was this tall guy in designer sunglasses and a polo shirt, acting like he owned the place, directing the movers, like he was in charge. I hit the brakes so hard that my truck screeched to a stop. Without thinking, I threw it in park and jumped out, not bothering to close the door behind me. I stormed up to the guy in the polo shirt and shouted, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He barely looked at me. With an annoyed look, he just said, "Mind your business, dude." I didn't even think about it. My body moved on its own. My fist connected with his jaw with such force that I felt the impact all the way up to my shoulder. The guy dropped to the ground like a sack of bricks, his sunglasses flying off his face as blood started trickling from his lip. I wasn't done. I jumped on him, just consumed with rage. 17 years of marriage, working 60-hour weeks, never even looking at another woman, and here was some random guy stealing my things in broad daylight. I kept landing, punch after punch. The movers just stood there, not even trying to stop me, with one hand gripping his shirt. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "There's a robbery at my house," I said, my breath heavy. "I've got one of them subdued. Send the cops now." I gave them the address and hung up. That's when I heard Melissa's voice, screaming, "Ethan, what are you doing? Get off him!" She dropped the clipboard and rushed over, shoving me hard enough that I lost my grip on the guy. She dropped to her knees beside him, wiping blood from his nose with her sleeve. She looked at him like what? I looked at her, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it. "Do you know this guy?" Melissa looked up at me, her expression cold as ice. "Yes," she said, voice frigid. "This is Jordan. He's my boyfriend." Time stopped. I felt like I couldn't breathe. 17 years. A lifetime together. And this is how I found out. Before I could even process what was happening, my foot slammed into Jordan's ribs. He groaned and curled up, but I wasn't done. I kicked him again, right in the ribs. The sound he made, a high-pitched wheeze, should have been funny in any other situation. "You're my wife," I shouted at Melissa, "and you're moving our stuff out with your boyfriend." I glanced at the U-Haul, then back at her. "What the hell is this? You're just leaving, taking half our things without even telling me." She stood up, brushing dirt off her knees. "I was going to call you after," she said, acting like this was just some minor inconvenience. I didn't want a scene. A scene. This was our entire life exploding in front of me. And she was acting like it was no big deal. Before I could say anything more, the cops arrived. 2 cruisers. Lights flashing. The neighbors were all out on their porches, watching. A big cop came right between me and Jordan, who was still on the ground, moaning. "What's going on here?" the cop demanded, hand near his weapon. "I'm the homeowner," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I got a call from my neighbor that people were loading my furniture into a truck. I came home and found this guy directing the movers. My wife apparently decided to leave me and take half our stuff without telling me." The officer turned to Melissa. "Ma'am, is this your husband?" She nodded, still looking pissed. "Yes," she said, not even looking at me. "And I'm taking my half." The officer didn't even blink. "Ma'am, you can't just take things from the marital home without a court order. Until a judge decides how to divide things. You can't legally remove furniture or major possessions." Melissa's face went from annoyed to shocked. "What? That's ridiculous. Half of this stuff is mine." "Maybe so," he said. "But you need legal documentation before you start dividing property. What you're doing right now could technically be considered theft." Her mouth dropped open. "Theft? It's my stuff too. That's not how the law works. Ma'am, you need to go through proper legal channels," the cop said, sounding done with the whole situation. Melissa looked like she was about to explode. "What am I supposed to do then?" she demanded. The cop was firm. "You can take your personal effects, clothes, toiletries, things that are clearly yours alone, but furniture, electronics. Anything jointly owned stays until the courts decide otherwise." Melissa's face twisted in fury. "This is unbelievable!" Jordan finally spoke up. His voice was nasally from his busted nose. "Baby, let's just go. We'll figure it out later." "Baby," I shot back. "You just bailed on me for this. Guy, I didn't even hear the cop telling me to back off." Everything was a blur of anger. They finally unloaded everything, and the movers started bringing it all back inside. Melissa grabbed her personal things, and she stormed off, muttering under her breath. I sat down in the living room, still in disbelief. My wedding ring felt like it was burning a hole in my finger, and I finally took it off, tossing it onto the coffee table. I couldn't even process what had just happened. It didn't feel real. Then, Zoe came home from school. She stopped in her tracks when she saw me sitting there, bruised knuckles and all. "Dad, why are you home?" she asked, noticing the mess. I patted the couch next to me. "Sit down, kiddo. We need to talk." She sat next to me, her face full of concern. "Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "Your mom left today. She's seeing someone else." I expected shock, confusion, maybe tears. What I didn't expect was for Zoe to just nod. "Oh, you mean Jordan?" I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "You knew about him." She avoided my gaze, picking at her nails. "Yeah, Mom told me a while ago." That hit me like a ton of bricks. I stared at Zoe, feeling like the ground had just shifted beneath me. My own daughter had known about her mother's affair for months and hadn't said a word. My brain couldn't process it. My chest tightened, and I had to force myself to speak, even though my voice felt hollow. "How long?" "Zoe," I asked, my throat tight. She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Like 6 months. Maybe more. 6 months. 6 months of my life being a lie. And my own daughter had been keeping it from me," she continued, as if she were explaining something mundane. "Mom said he was her soulmate. They were meant to be together, but life got in the way. So she married you." I wanted to scream. This wasn't just some random betrayal, it was a calculated decision. So, I was just a backup plan, a good provider. Zoe didn't look at me, and her response came out as a shrug. "Yeah," she said, "you were reliable. You were a good choice." But she never really loved you the way she loved him. Every word she spoke hit me like a hammer. I was just the guy who paid the bills, who kept the house running. I wasn't the man she loved. I was just the safety net until her so-called soulmate could finally be with her. All those years, all the hard work, the sacrifice. And I had just been a placeholder. Mom never really loved you the way she loved Jordan. The words echoed in my mind. My heart was breaking, but my anger was rising too. I clenched my fists to keep from throwing something, anything. I tried to keep my voice steady. So, if Jordan had never left for Europe, you think she would have married him instead? Yeah, Zoe said without hesitation. That's what she told me. It would have been perfect. The world felt like it was spinning as I processed her words. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my life, had been a lie. I wanted to grab her and shake some sense into her, but I held back. I didn't want to make this worse for her. She wasn't the one who had cheated on me, but she had been complicit. She had kept the secret, helped her mother hide the truth from me. I couldn't just ignore that. Who else knows about this? I asked, my voice rough. Zoe hesitated, looking at her nails again. Grandma and Grandpa know. They never really liked you. They always thought Mom could do better. I felt my chest tighten even more. 17 years of trying to be a good son-in-law, helping them out whenever they needed it, and they had always looked down on me. They never thought I was good enough for their daughter. It was like someone had knocked the wind out of me. The betrayal didn't just come from Melissa. It was everyone who had been complicit in this, keeping the secret from me. Standing by while my whole life was being torn apart, I laughed bitterly, the sound empty and hollow. So, after all this time, they never liked me. Zoe looked at me with uncertainty, like she didn't know how to respond. They always thought you were too plain, too stable. I don't know. They didn't think you were right for her. Right for her, I repeated, barely able to speak through the fury and heartbreak. I gave everything I had. I gave her 17 years, and this is how I'm repaid. Dad, Zoe said softly, finally looking at me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to hurt you. My chest was tight, the pain too much to bear. You knew. Zoe, you knew. And you didn't tell me. You knew your mom was cheating on me, and you kept it from me. You knew that our whole life together was a lie. She winced at my words, but I didn't care. I didn't know what to say, she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside me. This wasn't her fault. She was just a kid, caught in the middle of something she couldn't control. But that didn't make it any easier. Zoe, I can't look at you right now, I said, my voice breaking. I can't look at your face without remembering that you kept this secret from me. You chose her side. I saw the hurt in her eyes, the confusion, the regret, but I couldn't help it. My heart was broken, and the anger was too fresh. She looked down, silent. Her grandmother, Carol, stepped in, wrapping an arm around Zoe's shoulders. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go. I watched them walk away, my heart in my throat. I almost called Zoe back, almost begged her to stay, but I didn't. I couldn't. Not after everything. I couldn't pretend like everything was fine when it was all falling apart. That night, I sat alone in the house, my fists still aching from the punches I'd thrown earlier. I had to make a plan. I had to move forward, because that's what life did. Right. It kept moving, whether you were ready or not. I couldn't stay in that house. It was a tomb now, full of ghosts. I couldn't look at the place where I had built my life with Melissa, where I had built a family. I couldn't even look at the damn walls without seeing her face, without hearing the lies. I needed to get out. I needed a fresh start. The next morning, I went straight to Marcus, my buddy from high school, who just so happened to be a divorce attorney. Marcus was the kind of guy who thrived in high-conflict situations. If anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was him. I walked into his office without an appointment, and his secretary, seeing my face, led me straight to his office. Ethan, Jesus, Marcus said when I walked in. What happened? I laid it all out for him, every painful, gut-wrenching detail. By the time I finished, he was already pulling out forms. We need to move fast. I told him, I need to protect everything I have. She gets the minimum. Not a penny more. Marcus nodded. We'll file today. Emergency hearing to freeze assets since she already tried to steal property. I felt a small glimmer of relief. At least there was something I could do. At least there was a way to fight back. We talked about custody next. I didn't care about fighting for Zoe. She deserved better than what I could give her right now. Let her stay with Melissa. Let her stay with her grandparents. I couldn't even look at her. Not after everything that had happened. But Marcus asked me a question that I hadn't really considered. What about Zoe? I laughed bitterly. Let her stay with Melissa's parents. They're the ones who've been protecting this mess anyway. The thought of Zoe staying with her grandparents didn't sit well with me. But it was better than her being with Melissa right now. I couldn't handle the thought of her being in that environment, being manipulated any further. She needed to heal, and I wasn't sure she could do that with her mother in the picture. So, I took the first step toward reclaiming my life, toward protecting what little I had left. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and endless legal jargon, but I felt a shift. I wasn't stuck anymore. I wasn't trapped in that life with Melissa. I was free, and it was time to rebuild. I just wasn't sure what rebuilding looked like yet. The next couple of weeks were a whirlwind. I dove into work, taking every overtime shift I could get. I needed the distraction. The days felt like they stretched on forever, each one a reminder of everything that had gone wrong. But in a way, that was good. It gave me time to process what had happened, to think about my next steps. I was determined to stay focused, to keep my head above water. I couldn't stay in the house. The memories there were suffocating, and every time I walked through the door, it felt like I was walking into a nightmare. So, I started looking for a new place to live. I wasn't ready to leave everything behind, especially Zoe, but I needed a fresh start. I couldn't stay in that place anymore. After a few days of searching, I found a small 2-bedroom apartment closer to work. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was a space I could make my own, without the constant reminder of everything that had happened. I set up one room for Zoe. It wasn't perfect, nothing was, but it was a place where she could feel safe if she ever needed it. I didn't tell her about the apartment at first. I wasn't sure if she would want to come stay with me or if she even wanted to be around me. After everything that had happened, I wasn't sure how she felt about me anymore, but I kept the room ready, just in case. Melissa tried to contact me a few times, but I ignored her calls. I didn't want to deal with her, not yet. The messages started with angry threats, then shifted to tearful pleas, and eventually to cold, calculated negotiations about dividing up the smaller things from the house, like the stuff that wasn't worth much, but still held some sentimental value. But I kept it strictly business. I didn't need any more emotional manipulation. One day, about 3 weeks after the court hearing, I got a call from Zoe's grandmother, Carol. Her voice was tight, and I could hear the worry in it. "Ethan," she said. "It's about Zoe." My heart sank. "What's wrong? Is she sick?" "No, not physically," Carol said, her voice shaking slightly. "She's hardly eating, barely sleeping. Her grades are dropping. She's just devastated. Ethan, she thinks you've abandoned her." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What do you mean?" "Abandoned her. She doesn't understand. She feels like you've cut her out of your life, and she thinks it's her fault. She's been telling people you won't even look at her. She's crushed." "Ethan." I sat there in stunned silence for a long moment. Zoe thought I had abandoned her. I had been so angry, so hurt by everything she had kept from me, that I hadn't even stopped to think about how this was affecting her. I hadn't considered that she might have been just as trapped as I had been. Carol's voice broke through my thoughts. "Ethan, I know you've been hurt, but she needs you right now. She needs to know you don't hate her." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I didn't know what to say. I was still angry, still devastated by everything that had happened. But I knew one thing. I couldn't let my daughter suffer because of my pain. I promised Carol that I would talk to Zoe, really talk to her. So, I did. I went over to her grandparents' house after work the next day. When I pulled up, I saw her sitting on the front porch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her face was pale, her hair a mess, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She stood up when she saw me, but she didn't come to me. She just stood there, unsure. I didn't know what to say, but I had to start somewhere. Your grandmother called me, I said, my voice thick with emotion. She said, you're not doing well. Zoe didn't look at me. She shrugged, but I could tell she was holding back tears. I'm fine, she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. I sat down on the porch steps, patting the spot next to me. After a long moment, she sat down too, but she didn't look at me. She just stared at the ground, her hands in her lap. I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. Zoe, I said softly, I'm sorry. I've been angry, but I never wanted you to think I abandoned you. I've been so hurt, and I took that out on you. She didn't say anything at first. It felt like an eternity before she finally spoke. I didn't mean it, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to make things worse. I reached over and gently put my arm around her shoulders. She tensed for a second, but then relaxed, leaning into me. You're my daughter, Zoe, I said quietly. I could never abandon you. I didn't know how to deal with everything. But that's not your fault, she sniffled, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry. I should have told you what was going on. I should have told you about Mom and Jordan. I know, I said softly, but you were just a kid. Zoe, I never wanted you to be caught in the middle of this. She looked up at me, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a spark of hope in her eyes. Do you still love me? Of course I do, I said, my voice firm. I'll always love you. That doesn't change. But we've got some work to do. Okay, Zoe nodded, still crying, but now with a sense of relief. I hugged her tightly, letting her cry it out, knowing that this was the first step in mending what had been broken. The next day, I showed up at Carol and Bill's house after work. One had a plan. Zoe needed to come stay with me. I couldn't keep pretending like everything was fine, like I wasn't still angry at her for keeping the secret, but I couldn't keep punishing her for Melissa's mistakes. Zoe needed to be with me. I took her to my new apartment that weekend. It wasn't perfect, but it was home now. I had made sure to set up a room for her, nothing fancy, but it was a place where she could feel safe. We spent the day together, just the two of us, working on rebuilding our relationship. And little by little, I started to believe that we could make it through this. Zoe slowly started coming around. Her grades improved, and she started sleeping better. She even started talking about college, about her future. For the first time in a while, things were starting to feel normal again. Melissa kept trying to contact me, but I kept it brief and businesslike. I wasn't interested in going back to her. I wasn't interested in fixing what was broken with her, but I could fix things with Zoe. That was what mattered now. Zoe and I weren't there yet, but we were getting there, and that was enough for me. Time seemed to pass in a blur after that. The days blended into one another. But with each passing day, Zoe and I grew stronger. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, still moments when the weight of what had happened hung over us like a dark cloud. But there were also moments of laughter, of shared conversations, of us just being a father and daughter again. We were starting to rebuild what had been broken. I kept working at the same job, now managing my own crew. My supervisor had given me the chance to step up after my legal issues with Melissa started to settle. It wasn't a promotion in the traditional sense, no more office perks or a corner office, but it was a significant shift. I had more responsibility, more pay, and for the first time in a while, I had a sense of purpose beyond just surviving. Zoe, too, had found her rhythm again. She'd been seeing a therapist, and it seemed to be helping, slowly but surely. She was starting to heal from everything that had happened. I was proud of her. Despite everything, she was resilient. I knew it wasn't going to be a quick fix, but I was determined to help her through it. And then there was Jamie. Jamie had entered my life in a way I didn't expect. She was nothing like Melissa, thankfully. Jamie was a project manager for the construction company that hired my crew. We met on a job site when she called me out for using the wrong gauge wire. She had been right, of course. But what surprised me wasn't just how smart she was, it was how much she didn't take any BS. She challenged me, but in a way that made me feel alive again. We started hanging out more, grabbing coffee after work, talking about everything and nothing. We clicked in a way I hadn't expected, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I actually looked forward to spending time with someone who wasn't wrapped up in the mess of my past. I was cautious, of course. I didn't want to rush into anything, but I liked being with her. It was simple. It felt like I was being myself again, without all the baggage that came with Melissa. Jamie had been through her own divorce, and she understood the complexities that came with it. We both had baggage, but we didn't let it define us. Zoe had already met Jamie a couple of times, casual dinners. No pressure, just getting to know each other. And to my relief, Zoe liked her. She wasn't trying to replace her mother, and Jaime wasn't trying to do that either. She was just someone who made me laugh, who listened when I needed to talk, and who had her own life and experiences. Then, there was Melissa. She still tried to contact me occasionally. Most of it was about practical matters, tax documents, questions about health insurance for Zoe, that sort of thing. I kept everything businesslike, but sometimes she would slip in a personal question, a comment about how I was doing, or how she missed Zoe. Every time, I ignored it. A few months after the divorce, I ran into Melissa's parents at one of Zoe's school events. It was awkward at first. I hadn't seen them in months, and when they saw me, it was clear they didn't know what to say. But then Bill, her father, surprised me. He came over and shook my hand. "You're a good father, Ethan," he said, his voice gruff but sincere. "Better than we gave you credit for." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. I had always tried to be the best son-in-law I could be, and hearing that, even from him, felt like a small victory. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As for Jordan, well, that was a different story. I heard through the grapevine that he'd violated the restraining order and ended up in county lockup for a month. I couldn't say I felt bad for him. After everything he'd done to me, to Melissa, and to Zoe, I couldn't feel sorry for him. The truth was, he had been exactly the kind of person I always suspected, a controlling, manipulative man who thought he was entitled to everything. And now, Melissa had gotten exactly what she deserved. It wasn't a satisfying ending, no. That wasn't the right word. But it was justice. It was the universe's way of balancing things out, of making sure that people like Jordan didn't get away with their crap. And Melissa, well, she was learning her own hard lesson. I'm not sure if I ever fully understood what happened with her, but I'd learned one thing for sure sometimes. People don't change. They show you who they are over time. And sometimes, the hardest thing to do is accept that. She was never the person I thought she was. She wasn't the woman I married. She was someone else entirely. And I had spent too much time trying to hold on to a version of her that didn't exist anymore. That's the thing about life. Though it moves forward, with or without you. And you can either hold on to the past, let it drag you down, or you can move on and make something better out of it. That's what I did. Zoe and I were good. No, we were better than good. We were rebuilding, and we were going to be okay. Every day wasn't easy, but we had each other, and that was enough. And as for me, I'm still figuring it out. There's no magic fix for what I went through, but I'm standing on my own 2 feet now. I'm stronger. I've learned that. When life knocks you down, you get back up. You rebuild. You protect your peace, and you move forward. Things are better now. They're not perfect. And I'm not pretending that everything is okay. But I'm not stuck in that nightmare anymore. I'm living my life, and it feels good. Zoe and I, we're a team. And with her by my side, I know we can take on anything. As for Melissa, I hope she gets the happiness she's chasing. But I'm done. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, and the fantasy world she tried to trap me in. I'm living my life now, and that's the only thing that matters. Life didn't turn out the way I thought it would, but in the end, it's better. It's real,